Hi, so my name is Peter and I'm a solutions consultant here at QuickBase. Recently, I've had an opportunity to sit down with Rob Contando and talk about what he's done with QuickBase within the strategic supply chain team at Skanska. And I'm excited to share this recording with you today. I think you'll be as impressed as I am with not only their vision, but their ability to continuously improve their operations. So sit back, relax, learn, and hopefully take away a few things to your own teams. So if you have any questions, feel free to add them into the chat below, and we'll answer as many as we can in this session. So let's jump in. Hey everyone, welcome. This is 3 ways Skanska tackled supply chain volatility. Make sure you're in the right spot. So State of the Union, where we are today, COVID has strained project budgets, affected material lead times, and now more than ever, builders need to consider the entire value chain and how to operate more strategically to control costs and keep schedules within plan. So to that end, we've asked Rob Contando from Skanska to join us today to discuss Skanska's innovative approach to supply chain and to share some of his learnings. I'm really excited for the conversation. Kind of the high points of you're in the right spot if you're finding it difficult to keep material deliveries and material management within key schedule windows due to very volatile lead times. Generally, if you feel like you have a lack of visibility into your procurement process, and if you're missing sustainability goals because you haven't really specified the right materials for the job, these are all things that we are going to cover today. First, we're going to start with some introductions. Rob's going to give a little bit of background on himself, Skanska, and their disruptive approach to supply chain. And then we're going to kind of go through how they started up this program and put in the tools and the pieces, and then ultimately what they did when COVID hit and they had to pivot. And then we're going to move through to the state of supply chain, where they are today, where they're thinking about the future. And then we're going to end with some Q&A. So let's introduce, let's go ahead and begin with the introductions. So today's speaker is myself. I'm in solutions at QuickBase. And Rob, can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about Skanska?
Sure. And thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me. And good afternoon and good morning, everybody. So I'm Rob Contando. I've been with Skanska for 9 years. I work out of our Philadelphia office, which is right outside of Philadelphia in Bluebell. My current role is with our national supply chain team. What we do is we drive collaboration with manufacturers of building products and equipment. And we collaborate to bring more value to our projects and to our clients. I've got 25 years of supply chain and operations management experience in a couple of different industries, automotive at first, telecom, and then in home building as well. In terms of Skanska is one of the largest development and construction companies in the world. In the U.S., we have 28 offices. We have just over 6,000 employees. And last year, we drove about $7 billion in revenue. Our major segments that we serve, healthcare, education, science and technology, data centers, aviation. So we're in just about every vertical you can think of in terms of construction.
Talk to us about how it started and really this disruptive mindset at Skanska, the culture, the ethos around strategic supply chain.
Yep. So the slide you see here is there's really 2 parts to it. So at the very top is kind of the supply chain map that you typically see in the construction world. And then down below that is a project life cycle. And there's really kind of 2 main parts to that project life cycle. The first one is what we call pre-construction. And then the second one is the construction phase. And pre-construction is really the time frame when the design of the product, the design of the project is still kind of fluid. So we implemented our strategic supply chain program about 8 years ago, and it was really in response to projects getting more and more complex. And we wanted to draw upon the expertise that resided with the manufacturers of the products, manufacturers of the equipment that we put into our projects. At the same time, we wanted to preserve this supply chain the way you see it here, because we think that there's important roles that each one of those levels of the supply chain, each one of those players plays We didn't want to disrupt that supply chain. We didn't want to like insert ourselves into that supply chain and buy things more direct. Really what we focused on is creating this additional link that you see in the graphic here, the supply chain directly from Skanska to the manufacturer. And again, that was really just to take advantage of the knowledge and the expertise and the innovation that those manufacturers drive in terms of the products that they develop and provide to the market. And what we do with that collaboration is we pull that forward into pre-construction. So that lower graphic that you see there, that green box, that's pre-construction. That's when the design is still fluid. And that's when there's still an opportunity to collaborate and affect that design and make it better than it would be without that collaboration. So, and that collaboration that we drive with manufacturers, it really brings benefits to both parties. So the manufacturers are able to get insights into what's important to our projects, what's important to our clients, and what's on their minds. And then, as I said, we get direct access to that innovation and the new product development that those manufacturers are driving. We get to use those on our projects.
So that's kind of like the design philosophy, where if you catch a problem at the very beginning, it costs $1 to fix, where if you wait until way down the line in the construction process, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, kind of takeaways from your intro is, all right, at a certain point, complexity, we had to get a little more strategic because the process of building was getting complex. Our manufacturers have expertise. Let's see if we can build a link to that. And then let's see if we can use that expertise to drive efficiency and cost savings early on in pre-construction. So can you give us an idea of some of the processes that you were, once you built that link, you were driving with your partners in manufacturing?
Yeah, really the key there, Peter, is to keep the manufacturers engaged in each of the projects that we're tracking internally, and that's a pretty heavy lift. So and the things that we need to keep them informed about are deliverable dates for budgeting activities, just overall project milestones, value engineering activities, and then projects have specific goals. Not every project has the same goals. So there's LEED certification goals, sustainability goals that we have. And then there's certain cities that we build in that have energy use requirements. Some cities are specifying all electric power. You can't burn any fossil fuels in those buildings. So those are the kinds of things that we want to make sure that our manufacturers are aware of and that those things are in front of them. Because that really is what drives the collaboration. Having them understand our goals and our clients' goals allows them to look at those projects and say, okay, well, where can I fit in? Where can my product fit into this project and make it better? So the manufacturers then have that ability to look at opportunities and look at different approaches to materials, to means and methods, and it allows us to create more value for our clients and help us to achieve our project goals.
Yeah. So what was interesting about some of the processes you tracked is that it sounds like you really customize it almost regionally to the regulation, compliance, and the things that matter for your partners in certain areas. And so it kind of sounds like you're getting them engaged, which seems like it's a challenge as it is, but B is kind of giving them context to, all right, based off of where you are, the type of work you're doing, the types of parts and products you're supplying, here are things to be aware of that are going to be specific to the delivering for these projects.
Yeah,
so
that's exactly right. It's impossible to take a one size fits all approach to projects that happen in all these different markets that we serve and all different clients that we serve. The needs and the goals and the aspirations are different from project to project. So being able to put that all in one place and have it accessible is really, really important.
Yeah, and you said only a team of 4, 150 projects across the country. So then that begs the question, it sounds like you kind of have to have a place to centralize all this work. And how did you, when you started this off and you were building your processes, how did you track it at that time? Tools, tooling, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so at first, I think like many folks, we started with spreadsheets, right? We said, okay, we got to consolidate, we got to pull information together. So we started with spreadsheets. Really cumbersome process, time consuming to keep those things current. And it really didn't provide us with an environment where we could drive two-way collaboration. It was all kind of one-way sharing information out to manufacturers, but really not a great way to create a pipeline for that information to come back to us. So we then moved to kind of a file sharing platform. Worked better, still kind of cumbersome to keep up to date. There was some ability for two-way communication that was introduced then, but still just wasn't what we needed. And when we looked at the user activity in that file sharing platform, what we found out is many of the manufacturers that we were trying to collaborate with really just weren't utilizing the tool because it was just not the greatest environment to do what we needed to do.
It sounds like you started with what you had available, file share systems and spreadsheets and the fourth and that group, and then ultimately found that there was probably a better way to do it. So let's go. We're going to talk about that, and I'm really interested to kind of see what the next leg of the journey looks like. This is just up to this point. What we've learned so far is you went out and built links. So you had a notion of what strategic supply chain looks like. I got the sense that this is not something that you necessarily need to start with out of the gate as a smaller company. It's usually as the complexity grows, do you start to need to bring that expertise into the beginning of the design process, pre-construction. So you built these links, you built out processes to create that pipeline back and forth. And then the challenge became, well, how do we scale this? How do we get tools and systems that really get that engagement that we want back and forth?
Yeah. And when you think about the information that we're sharing back and forth, it can get pretty complicated, right? We're talking about drawings and plans and specs and technical information, right? So having an environment and a platform that allows that level of detail to go flow back and forth is really important.
At some point in your journey, the file share systems, the Excel, the email stopped serving you, probably because of what you mentioned about engagement and can't find what I need. Can you tell us a little bit about that pivot point of when and why you decided to find something else and how you did that?
Yeah, really the big thing for us, and we talked about this already, is just that user experience. We wanted to improve that user experience because our program is all about collaboration. So if we're not providing a platform where manufacturers feel comfortable sharing information with us and it's easy for them to share information with us, then we're not getting done what we need to get done. So that really was the driver for us. We wanted to put a tool in place that they would actually use. And then in 2017 is when we found QuickBase. And we've been using QuickBase ever since. So it really just allows us to create that environment that we wanted to create, where we can share information, we can organize it in a way that the information is easy to find by our manufacturers and partners we work with. The other thing that's important too is that QuickBase offered us an ability to automate certain functions that we do. So one of the things that we do is we send out email notifications to manufacturers to kind of, as we mentioned before, keep them up to date on project milestones. When are things happening? When do we need your input? What are the important things we need your input on? And when you think about that across the U.S., say a certain manufacturer, the people that they have in one market, let's say in New York City, are going to be very different from the people that they have serving the market in Seattle. So for us, in order to reach the right people, the screen that you're looking at here, this is an interface that we've created in our QuickBase application that allows us to, for each one of the projects that we're managing, list out who are the technical experts from each of the manufacturers in that market where the project is being built. And that's really important because if you're not getting down to that technical expert in that market, then you're probably not going to get to the answer that you want, and you're not going to get it to it in time. So this page, again, allows us to set up unique contacts for each project and unique contacts for each manufacturer. And then what we do is, again, when we reach those important milestones, there's an automation that we have built into QuickBase where we can send out automatic email notifications to make sure that everybody is staying up to date on what's happening with the project and what are the opportunities to collaborate with us.
Yeah, so back to the adoption question, it sounds like it's a spectrum. Ultimately, some partners, they'll probably have a lot more engagement in the app, and others, it's like you said, it's just a trigger. Now they know, maybe they're more comfortable picking up the phone and talking to a rep. Either way, you kind of bridge the gaps that exist to the extent that you can, and you'll probably have a range of maturity based off of, established long-term veterans versus maybe smaller partners in the region, right?
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay, cool. I went on long with my additional questions here, but it does take us to, all right, so you've set up processes, infrastructure, and now you've kind of found a tool that allows you to scale a bit. What happened when COVID hit?
Yeah, so when COVID hit, the world changed dramatically for us for construction supply chains. Prior to COVID, I think the way I would describe construction supply chains is pretty predictable, both from a lead time and from a pricing, year over year escalation of pricing. Very, very predictable. That all changed when COVID hit. So lead time shot up, pricing shot up. And the way we looked at it is this created another opportunity for us to work with manufacturers and to bring more value to Skanska and to our teams and to the manufacturers. So, one of the things that we did right away is we put a lead time dashboard in place with our manufacturers. Let me go to that slide. So what we did is we started to, again, because lead times were changing so quickly and so dramatically, we said, hey, we really need to be able to get this information into the hands of our project teams as quickly as we can. So we saw an opportunity here to kind of short circuit the communication from the supply chain and get lead times directly from manufacturers and be able to feed that through to our project teams. And the good news is we already had a conduit in place for that. So QuickBase is our conduit for communications with their manufacturers. Manufacturers were already using the platform. They were already familiar with it and comfortable with it. So what we do is, again, we collect those lead times directly from the manufacturers. Some of them will actually go right into the app and enter the lead times on a regular basis for us. Sometimes we'll enter the information on their behalf. But the thing that makes this really powerful is we're getting it directly from the source. We're entering in the information, and because QuickBase has a direct channel into Power BI, we're able to feed this chart that you see here. And this is an example of one of our lead time dashboards that we have. So this is for switchgear. And this really kind of illustrates the kind of what happened with lead times during COVID. So this particular category of materials here, lead times were typically 18 to 24 weeks pre-COVID. As you can see from the graph here, they're now at 65 to 80 weeks. So the world just changed dramatically, especially in the electrical world, right? Because there's just so much demand as everything becomes electrified. And as we continue to build out data centers across the country, electrical demand is really through the roof.
This is another tangent that I just thought of, is because some of it's like, okay, we had the whole supply chain issues and there was bottlenecks and backups and all that stuff. But you just brought up a point. Is there an aspect of this that's just, well, fundamentally the demand for these complex electromechanical systems has skyrocketed, so it's compounding the lead times because ChatGPT and people want to build chips and data centers and all that stuff.
That's a great point because we really, when lead time shot up originally during the height of COVID, it was because there were supply chain issues. It was because a lot of the manufacturers were having trouble getting their components or their raw materials into their factories, and that really shot up lead times. But then what happened is the construction industry kind of took off, and I mentioned one of the segments is data centers. There's quite a few data centers being built around the country right now, and there's big demands for not only electrical equipment, but also HVAC equipment because there's a lot of heat generated in those data centers as well. Okay. So we're definitely seeing a continuation of, again, as you can see from the graphic here, of the heightened lead times, the extended lead times, especially on mechanical and electrical equipment. Many of the other categories that we track have kind of returned to typical lead times, or more typical lead times, I should say. But mechanical and electrical are still very challenging, very long lead times.
So then it makes me think, well, it sounds like it's for the 4 folks that were managing 150 projects has probably been great from a coordination standpoint. What's been the feedback from, the manufacturers and suppliers and the rest of the ecosystem on having to use QuickBase? I mean, any feedback there?
So the feedback's been tremendous. Actually, the dashboard that you're looking at here, the lead time dashboard, and this is just one of the categories. There's many, many more that we track. The feedback's been tremendous. This lead time dashboard is the most widely utilized dashboard across all of Skanska. As you can imagine, our scheduling professionals, our project managers, our pre-construction teams, this information is really critical to them. So they use this information on a daily basis, right? So, and it may seem simple at first when you say, okay, it's lead times, right? But when you think about what we've done here, we've created that direct line from manufacturers right to our project teams. We've been able to kind of short circuit that and get that right in front of our project teams on a real-time basis. Our manufacturers benefit because we know what to expect. We know how long the lead times are. So it really minimizes fire drills. It minimizes the needs for expediting. And then most importantly, it allows us to stay on schedule for our clients and deliver the final projects to them when they're expecting it, and allows them to serve the communities that they're serving with their projects, be it a hospital or an airport or whatever it is. So really, the kind of the other part that I'll say about that too is, again, just having that pipeline in place, having that system in place really just allowed us to do that.
Believe it or not, we're 4 years in. Would love your thoughts on the state of supply chain today. Are we back in a state of normal? What's really changed? Talk us through your thoughts there.
We get that question a lot, and I guess it depends on how you define normal, right? But the way we see it is we're in the period of the new normal now. Things aren't going to go back to the way they were. So if you define normal as the way they were pre-COVID, I don't think we're going back to the way things were. And this graphic that you see here is really a great illustration of that. So this is the building construction cost index that E&R tracks on a regular basis, been tracking this for years. And if you look at that period there, pre-COVID, you see that first vertical line there. You kind of see kind of slow and steady escalation of pricing happen year over year, and really for decades prior to COVID, it was pretty predictable, that escalation pace. And then when COVID hit, in that 24-month period that you see here, a 24% increase in pricing is really dramatic for construction supply chains. Never seen that before in the construction industry. And then it started to level out. And I would say, the one thing that has returned to normal is that escalation percentage is now more like the way it was pre-COVID. But as you can see from the graphic, we're at a different level now. That pricing has gone up, and we don't think it's coming back down. You can kind of see our prediction lines there where we think pricing is going from here. So that's what we see. 4 years out of COVID, things are not as volatile as they were, but we don't see things going back to the way they were pre-COVID, particularly from a pricing point of view. And as we saw earlier, for lead times for some materials are still dramatically extended. So what does that mean for us, right? So this has put tremendous strain on our project budgets, as you can imagine. So again, this then created an additional opportunity for us to collaborate more with manufacturers. So what we find today is more and more of our collaboration, more and more of our discussion with manufacturers is around value engineering. It's around how do we try to get our project budgets back to where our clients are expecting them to be as much as we can. So, and again, our QuickBase system that we have in place allows our manufacturers to collaborate and to give us proposed solutions for VE that we can then bring to our project teams and bring to the design teams that are working on those projects. And they can do that in an environment they're already comfortable using. So a great example, so a project that we're doing in the Pacific Northwest. So very complicated ceiling design. And it was complicated because that's the aesthetic that the client was going for, right? So we didn't want to change that. We didn't want to try to push that client down a path where the end product wasn't going to be what they expected. So, but what we did do is we collaborated with Armstrong Ceilings. They're one of our manufacturers we collaborate with on a regular basis. And they have some pre-engineered, prefabricated ceiling support systems that they've developed. So we worked along with the project team. We worked along with the ceiling subcontract that we had selected for this. And we moved forward to the Armstrong solution. So rather than having to stick build, for example, that support system in the field, Armstrong has some prefabricated systems that basically pull them out of a box, you fold them and snap them into place, and then suspend them in the ceiling. So it's allowed us to significantly reduce the cost of the finished product, that ceiling. And through QuickBase, it allowed us to drive that collaboration with Armstrong. The other thing that I'll mention too is we do work quite a bit with Armstrong on the sustainability as well. So one of the things that they do is if you're doing a renovation project, you can take your old ceiling tiles out and they'll actually recycle them. They have a process where they can be sent back to their factories, and then that content can be recycled into new ceiling tiles. That helps us to achieve some of our LEED goals on projects. And it also helps Armstrong to be more sustainable as well, right? Because their recycled content in their new product goes up because of that process.
Cool. So the word change is macro change, which is people, processes, and getting alignment around a vision. And that's one kind of playbook of consensus building and highlighting the wins. And then just the process of a new field or a new kind of piece of a formula or whatever. And then it's having the people in place and the tools in place where you could have that very fast but controlled change process. You mentioned continuous improvement, and those are two things that I would consider then as you embark on this. A very quick thank you to you, Rob, for joining us. We're actually towards the end. I really enjoyed the conversation and just getting your story out there.
Great. Well, thanks, Peter. It's great talking to you.